Going live
I'm
in
ready. I'm
three,
ready.
two, one. Well, hello and welcome, folks, to another episode of Talk Power BI. Well, this one is going to be a special one. This is something, could be a whole new direction for this one. So we are excited about that because this is no longer about Avi, which is good. I mean, I frankly never wanted it to be about Avi, and of course, you guys have seen a lot of guests, a lot of panel discussions, and of course, you have participated in that. But this one is taking a whole another level because this one is what we're hoping the first of many episodes to come of the Charles and Avi show. So, folks, Charles is no stranger to you. You have seen him around on the channel. You have heard his own amazing story. Recently, you've probably heard me talk about all of his efforts around the COVID 19, and he went all out, pretty much set up a company, a nonprofit outfit to supply 3D printed masks to the frontline responders. And of course, he runs his own Power BI consulting company. He's been part of the Learn Power BI family for a long time, part of the Pro Plus group. But there's one news. So let's start on the news front, folks, before we kind of tackle on our discussion of employee versus consultant. Actually, you know what? Let me just talk about the topic first. By the way, if you're watching us online on YouTube, do say hi. Just let us know where you're joining us from. I love hearing that. So let's talk about the topic. Then we'll do a little bit of news, and then we'll dive into the topic. All right. So the topic: employee versus consultant. And of course, I was an employee for a long time at Microsoft. What do I put myself? I don't know, somewhere here. All right, right. And I left that many years ago, and have been a consultant since. And since then, my goal has been to help my students succeed. And of course, we get folks on both sides, right? I mean, both sides of the aisle of the fence. We have people who are employees working in companies, large companies, small companies, all different industries, and we have people who are on the consulting route. And if you have, not been hiding under a rock these days, the trend that's happening is this side gig thing, right? Where people are kind of blending both, right? So they're working at a company and they're also helping other clients. And in my mind, that is the university professor model, right? So university professor, they teach, they have a full-time job. A lot of them are tenured, but they're also active. A lot of times they're starting their own companies or serving as advisors in other companies, right? So we're seeing this blend, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And inside our group, we have seen people take either of those paths and get tremendous success. And the funny thing is that, of course, I look at my own journey, I look at my students' journey, and sometimes I think that, oh my God, these things are so different, right? And of course, now since I'm in the consultant, kind of the freelancer role, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is, yeah, right? I mean, so I feel that. I'm like, they're so different. But sometimes I sit back and say, man, they're not really that different. They're kind of the same if you dig in a little bit more, if you really start talking about what's important for us. So that's the topic. That's what we're going to talk about. Charles and Guy are going to go head to head. No, we're just going to chat. All right. So I see a lot of folks online. That's good to see. Of course, we have our students dial in, which is awesome as well. But I see James, Danny, Juan, Akash, Angela, Jordan from St. Louis, Missouri. St. Leo is here. Stephen, hey, Stephen, good to see you on. Hopefully you will be able to. Sorry, I haven't been able to get back to you. All right, I'll check with you soon, Stephen. All right, so hello and welcome everybody. So let's. So I talked about the topic a little bit. Let's start with the announcements. Starting with the most important one. So this went out to our Pro Plus group. We haven't put it up on our website yet, but we would. And which was this: Team Avi is growing, and I couldn't be more excited. And to give you a little bit of the backstory, the way it started was that Marianne was chatting with me about something. So, folks, most of you, anybody who's pretty much sent an email to me He knows Marianne because for one, she handles communication. She also handles operations and social media, right? So that's Marianne. So you know her, and you've seen her on her website. And I was talking to Marianne, and she said something, and I responded saying, at some point, it has to become more than just about me, and that did something, and one thing led to the other, and I think this is like the best thing for everybody. And we're really excited about this. So Charles Elwood has stepped up to be a Pro Plus coach. So he's been part of the Pro Plus program. The full name of that is Six Figures Power BI Consultant. It's a program to help kind of coach people, train and coach them to either step into consulting or grow their Power BI consulting businesses. And Charles has been a part of the program. Of course, has his own company, Solismatica. So he's kind of been there, done that. But of course, what I saw especially in Charles was this drive to help others. Sometimes even putting himself aside, and of course, yeah. So I saw it time and again where he would put his own interests aside and put others' interests in front. So I think that makes him an incredible coach, and I know that our members are going to benefit out of that. We already had our first meeting where we kind of brainstormed. So, oh yeah, how can we, take it to the whole new level? So we're excited about that. So that's number one, and of course, so Charles and I are going to dive into that employee versus, maybe there shouldn't be a versus, or whatever, employee versus consultant discussion. And hey, if you follow me on anywhere, you know that we are super duper excited for our upcoming Power BI conference. Charles Elwood is speaking there as well. So that is not that far away. Tuesday, June 16th, 17th. And the last I checked, we had a close to 1,000 registrants. Frankly, we're getting worried if we're going to have enough capacity on the webinars. But let us worry about that. You go sign up, and we have lined up an amazing set of speakers. And folks, by the way, so this conference, I mean, if you've seen my communication, of course, on this page, you can see that we want this to be a little bit different. Our focus, our love is for the business users, the folks I call on the front line, right? So not sitting in IT and like, yep, we create reports for other business users. No, I mean, you're dealing with the business and you're the front line. You're the one who really needs the business intelligence. So that's who we want to empower. And we have gathered the top Power BI business minds in the world. I feel really excited about that. And yeah, to empower kind of the business teams. And yeah, make BI accessible to everyone. These are just some of the speakers. A lot of them and every one of them is going to have really awesome stuff to share with you. These are some of the topics. And again, we're going to have a balance. So because if you're on the business side, you don't want to do technology for the sake of technology. So we are going to focus on topics, and all of these speakers are going to bring in the tech from a very simplified business user-friendly perspective. But we're also going to talk about the biz side of things, which is like how do you apply the tech and get the results, right? Because that's what's important, right? Otherwise, what's the point of tech? So PowerBIConference.com, go there and register. Did I have anything else? Same thing on LearnPowerBI.com. So that's it. That's it for announcements. And so let's kick it off. I'm going to turn off my screen thing here because I don't think we need that. So again, folks, the stop share and let's go Zoom. All right, so we got a lot of folks here as well. How do I change the view? All right, so Charles, well, first of all, maybe tell us, so we're talking about employee versus consultant. I know you've gone through this path. Why don't we start there and tell us really quickly about yourself, about that path.
Yeah, sure. So I graduated Rose-Hulman engineering degree. I think I've always had this desire to be an entrepreneur or make an impact or start something, right? And I had an opportunity because I'm half Thai to work with a company that had started a plant in Thailand, and they needed an engineer that spoke Thai and English to travel from the U.S. and go to Thailand and kind of bridge the gap over there.
Wow.
And so, I wanted to make an impact, help the people, the plant in Thailand and work on that side of things. So this journey started early, where I kind of wanted to grow and make a bigger impact. And that's a theme, I think, in my whole career. I worked at GE for a while, Delphi Automotive as systems engineer. Then went to New Hampshire, worked on super wide printers. These printers these are amazing. I just got to stop for a second because you could take a door and stick it in this printer. This is an inkjet printer, and people stuck carpet in there and like the ceiling tiles, and they would print like a photorealistic image on these. So yeah, check it out. It's ViewTech is the company, EFI ViewTech, but amazing
Wow.
stuff. But that was the corporate world. And then I came to JCI and then worked for National Bulk. But it reminds me of the Dilbert cartoons. There or the show The Office. I think
Yeah.
Avi, you mentioned
Oh,
that
I'm a
the other
huge
day.
fan. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's some great stories in The Office, and if you've been in the corporate world and you watch those videos, you're like, wow, there's so many parallels. And I've listed a few here. Just some of the frustrations and the why. There's stability. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was nice to have that, like you've said before, that
Yeah.
paycheck every month. When it comes in, health insurance, just everything taken care of. You just like go to work, follow orders, everything's taken care of. So there is comfort and stability. But I just had this itching inside. There were things that were happening, and I'll go through some of the stories where I was like, man, I wish I had my freedom. I wish I had my time. I could decide what to do with my time. So that's where, it was this push, and you kind of helped me on that, and I could talk a little bit about that. But there was this urge inside of me, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do it. And I just put one. There was a domino, and I think back now, there was a domino, and you and Marianne was actually, speaking of Marianne, she sent me an invite. It's like, Charles, we're doing a show about Power BI consultants, but we want somebody that's kind of on the transition, that's on the
Oh, I
verge of
remember
getting ready.
that. Oh my God. Yeah.
And she's like, you're right in the middle of that. And I was like, ooh, this is really scary because I'm still working in the corporate world. I'm thinking about this, but all these fears are going through my head. But I think back now, Avi, and I think going on that show, and I think it reminds me of your mindset video. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you when I talked about what my plans were, and I was putting myself in the future of leaving the corporate job, and then that video, I put myself out there as like, this is what I'm planning, this is what I'm thinking. And when I did that, it put me in that mindset, and
Yeah.
really, I think was the first domino in starting me on that journey.
Yeah. Well, so I'll just say that for one, it's quite different for me because I never wanted to be a
Uh,
consultant. Yeah, I mean, I never even thought
oh,
about it. I never thought it was possible. Yeah, I mean, it just wouldn't cross my mind. I mean, I remember I would read the magazines like Inc. and Entrepreneur, and I enjoyed those,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it was always, yeah, some other person, oh, good for them. Yeah, I mean, look, they're doing amazing things, and of course, in my mind, yeah, and so I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. Kind of one thing led to the other, and before I knew it, I'm like, what am I? Yeah, what is this? Yeah, but since then, of course, I have certainly learned to thoroughly enjoy aspects of it. I mean, you talked about freedom. Um, that's a big factor, and I hear that from others as well. But I want to go back to something that you said and reconsider it, which you said about the stability and security. And
yeah,
again, I mean, the more I've thought about this topic, the more I've had to tear down the things that we presume, so the
yeah,
classic line of thought is that, oh, this is more secure. Having a job is more secure, but maybe less freedom. And then on the other side, and maybe less potential for growth. And on this side, we assume that, oh, it's less secure, more risky, but more freedom, way more freedom, and there's a tremendous upside for growth, right? I was chatting with somebody else,
yeah,
and I'm like, you can double a business in a year. it's not unheard of, right? But
Yeah.
good luck trying to do that as an employee. I mean, I look back
Right.
to my inevitable single digit raises. I mean, it was pathetic. It was, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole other story. But I want to focus on the point about stability. And folks, I want to hear from you on YouTube as well. See what you feel. So, Charles, what I'm going to say is I don't know. I'm not sure if being an employee gives you any more stability or security. For one,
Yeah.
man, those days are gone. Like my dad worked for the same company all his life. And now this corporate layoff thing is scary and it's reality. And of course, in the
Mm.
time that we're in, a lot of people have painfully felt that, right? So
Right.
you can
Right.
be gone like an instant, and I would say that that is not
Mm.
more secure and stable. That is much riskier than being a consultant. Because, man, you got all your eggs in one basket. You lose your job and you're gone. And not just that, right? So you lose your job and you're gone. But the unfortunate part is that when we are in a job, we become kind of complacent. I know I was.
Yeah.
I know many times in my career, I would look at what I was doing and how much I was being paid for it. And I'm like, holy mother of God! Like, who's gonna pay me this much? Like, if I lose my job now, who would pay me to do this? Yeah, right. I mean, so I was kind of complacent. I was like set. You've been a few years and they like you and all that stuff. You've figured out the right people and fallen in the right crowd. Hopefully, sometimes that didn't work either. Right. So you're kind of complacent. So now when the rug is pulled from under your feet, you're devastated. And I saw a lot of
Yeah.
people who were around Microsoft for 20 years, very stable, right? But man, when the rug was pulled, they were in tears, literally in tears, because they didn't know what they could do. So,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure. Is it in this day and age? Is it really secure? And of course, if I look at the consulting side, man, a consultant lives a different life. We hedge our bets. We don't put all our eggs in the same basket. We often, if somebody's doing it right, you're obviously going to have multiple clients. And if one is struggling, and you probably experienced that as well through this
Yeah.
current phase, like, oh, this client dropped off, but then that one is going
There's new
steady, and
ones.
here we got new ones. So it's kind of diversified. I sometimes compare it to stocks. So what's your take on that? Is it really secure? Or is it just
So
that paycheck? I mean, I would say that paycheck showing
yeah.
up every month. That was a shift to move to this world. That was kind of
Yeah.
painful. I would say that. So what's your take on that?
So that's an interesting question. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, is pay, that income, the stability if of that income, that check, it does show up every month, but then you're tied to that. And the value of that kind of goes away. And I think that's along your point. Like when I was in corporate world, like you said, I
Hmm.
created so many spreadsheets and I remember submitting them and I marked them as red. And then I would get an email or somebody would call me up. It's like, you can't submit that as red, turn it to green. It's got to be okay. So, I mean, literally, I was like, oh, okay, but it's really red. But they're like, no, no, turn it green. So you turn it green and you resubmit, and everyone's like, yeah, good job, and you're like, wait a second, is this the amount of pay that I'm getting to turn things from red to green? Is that really what I want to do with my life? Like, is that the impact I want to make? And then there's a real, I think, realization, there was so much waste is, I guess what I'm saying. I remember there's the paperwork, before there were for approvals and stuff.
Hmm.
If especially in large campuses, you'd have to walk to find your boss or this guy or that guy and get a
Oh
signature.
boy.
And this was a couple years ago. I was seeing this kind of stuff still, right? So I was like, wow, there's so much waste. There's automation, emails now, but there's pay going into this, and I was like, there's just so much waste and inefficiencies where I come out now and every dollar that I earn, it's a realization. It's like I'm making an impact. I'm adding value. And when somebody pays me, I'm working hard for that and really making a difference.
Yeah.
So I think the value of money changed in my mind from, the corporate world when I'm just told to do
Oh,
this.
big
It's like,
time, mate. Yeah,
yeah,
feel you
go
there.
get this signature. It's like, okay, I walk across and I get paid for that whole time
Yeah.
versus build a BI report that'll change my company and efficiencies. And I do that and they pay me for that. And like, man, this is a lot of value in this time that I spent here. So no, I
Yeah.
think that is one thought I had is your value on how things your understanding how things are valued and how much waste goes into stuff is realized. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I remember moving here from India, and and I had this glorified vision of these companies, like, oh my God, it's gonna be, kind of these silver gilded halls or something. I don't know what I
Yeah.
expected, but I was kind of in for a rude shock. So one of the early companies that I worked for was AOL, and right, I was like, oh my God, I'm working at AOL. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, and then I saw what was going on, and I'm like, holy God, this is they're being held together by like duct tape, right? And of course, I saw a same version of that even in Microsoft, right? I mean, you see, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is how things really work. But of course, it didn't surprise me as much at that point. So cool, mate. So let's flip the tables a bit. So again, folks, we want to examine both sides. So let's talk about freedom. So right, so we talked about how job, we think, oh, it's security and so forth. This one's more risky, and we said that maybe that's not the case. Let's go on the other side, and again, this conventional thinking is that oh, for the job you don't have freedom, and in this you do have freedom. So I want to flip it, but before we flip it, let's kind of sit in there, and I know we're both in this. And what's the kind of freedom that you enjoy that comes to mind? Stuff that you can do now, which
Yeah.
you just
Whoa.
couldn't earlier.
Yeah, and I think you have some stories about the mountain climbing and walking the dog and stuff, but it's stuff like that. It's the little things, right? So
Yeah.
I still remember there was one day I left my corporate job and it was 6 o'clock. And I remember looking at my Outlook schedule and it was meetings from 8 till 6, boom, 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 all the way down. And I walked out that day and I was like, wow, I don't think I got anything done, and
Yeah.
typical, like Gilbert in the office,
Yeah.
you know, I think it was like, Charles, we needed this report done today. And I was like, but I had meetings all day. So how is,
I know.
and I came to that realization. It's like, man, we waste so much time. So, but the freedom to, so now, when I need a break from work, and I need to go for a run around the block and, or take the dog out for a walk or, yesterday it was fantastic. I went out for a walk and off the Lake Michigan, there was a fog coming through, and it was
Yeah.
weaving through the trees and everything. And there's this mist coming through. It looks like a cloud is coming at you, and I'm looking up and, hearing the birds chirp and stuff. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I have the freedom to just go and take a run
Yep.
whenever I want. I was like, this is fantastic. And just on another point, like, you know, I've had opportunities like LinkedIn Live or
Mm-hmm.
go on this show or, there's no ceiling like what you just did with the virtual conference, making
Yeah.
decisions like that. It's like, man, I have this
Oh
vision. I want to
God.
make
Yeah.
this. I'm going to do
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
and Avi, I'm going to be honest. When I heard that you were doing that, I was scared. I was like, wow, I've had that feeling like when I left and, just flew and took off the edge and started my own company. I
Yep.
was like, Avi's doing it again. He's taking the next domino, the next step. But it's that freedom to be able to do something like that that is
Wow.
so fantastic.
Yeah, mate. There's so much backed in there. So much backed in there. Uh, so I liked what you said. I really
Yeah.
like what you said. So, folks, sometimes it's the smallest of stuff, just the really small stuff. But I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and that feeling that you're in control, and of course, I think that's a bit of an illusion. We really are in control, right? I mean, look back at your life. Now, how much of that was scripted? You're like, oh yeah, you thought this is going to happen, and that's what happened. Not in my life, but yeah, but those small things they do matter, and yeah, just being able to uh, say at some point that I'm gonna take the afternoon off, just go out with a 5 minute walk with my dog, just being out with my kids more, yeah, just small stuff. Like we did this thing where we do like a date with my daughter on Wednesday. So Wednesdays her school would end early, and we called it doggy dates. And we would take her dog around and do something fun. Now I wasn't too pleased about it. The having fun thing usually ended up us ending up at Starbucks with like a really sugary drink in her hand. I'm like, what? Anyway, but that's besides the point. But yeah, kind of the small things, and they matter. So folks, we're hearing some feedback. So just go and mute. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So it's the small things, and then of course, one aspect. Now I want to hear from you. So again, kind of on the choices thing. So there's choices in the small things that we can do. There is choice in kind of the initiative, like we want to do this. I want to run a virtual conference, and yeah, there's no red tape or something like that. But then there is, of course, the kind of people you surround yourself with, choose to work with. I have loved that part because
Yeah.
in a job, typically what would happen is I would interview and I, well, I mean, any job that I picked, even when I was slightly desperate when I lost my job, I was lucky enough that I mean, I liked my boss, my hiring manager in the interview, so I knew that had a chemistry with him, so that was good. But of course, as jobs go, man, that can change in a bit. In right, so reorgs. Of course, my boss left or something. So then you may not even have that chemistry with your hiring manager, with the person you're working with, which I think
Yeah.
is could be the 80% of your happiness or more in a corporate job. And of course, if you step outside of that, you had very little control over the team. And I saw this phenomena. I don't think it's exclusive to Microsoft. I'm pretty sure it isn't. But there was always, so excuse my French, guys, but there was always one a hole in the team. And I think there's a book, something like no,
Yeah.
rule to not hire, and it was incredible. And the guy, or well, the person was insufferable. Everybody knew it. And the oddest thing that I saw was that these folks were, not like they were told to improve or something. They were rewarded at times. Anyway, so this thought about being able to choose the folks you work with is how have you seen that? Has that felt important to you?
Incredibly important. When you work with people that lift you up and push you forward and have the same values as you and want you to improve, it makes you a better person. It helps you help them become a better person. It's been amazing. But like you said, that when you're in the corporate world, you see a lot of that. It's like, wow, you work with some people that you don't really get to choose. And
Yeah.
I remember yelling matches. People, I thought people were going to jump across the meeting table and
Oh
punch each other.
God.
I was like, how is this? How is this? You know, you see the badge on the door, you're like, this is a good company, and there's people trying to,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you're like, this is out of a Dilbert cartoon. This is,
Yeah.
or Office. There's also, there's just people being like outright kind of mean to each other. There's instances where, they go around the table and they push you to do something. And they're like, are you going to do this? Okay. And then you need to do this because everyone else is doing, like high pressure stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you come out of that and you go on the other side, there's the freedom and to choose who to work with. And two examples is, this 3D printing initiative. You know, we set up our values as kind of this company, 3DC19, and we were saying we're gonna help anybody in the world on the front lines or anybody going back to work that
Yeah.
needs PPE, and we're gonna do it for free and make an impact. And our whole like philosophy was it was almost like trading value. Money is a medium for exchange. So what we wanted to do was exchange PPE to protect people's lives. And so that's what we wanted back was help,
Mm.
making an impact, something so human, help other people, protect them from this. So the coolest thing was I was surrounded by this army. We had like 200 people
Wow.
3D printing, and they were all doing this just from their heart. They just wanted to help other people. They didn't want anything in return, really. They just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know that they were making an impact, right? And I think there's a parallel too in what you're doing, Avi. Like you have Marianne, who I know is giving, helping,
Yeah.
she empowering other people. She has that even in her title.
Hmm.
I'm all about that. I have heart and want to help people. And I know you were telling me the other day, if you can't help somebody, you lose sleep, right? You're like, I
Yeah.
want to help people. That's just ingrained in me. So, now
Yeah.
that we're working together, it's like the most beautiful thing in the world to work with everybody. We're not climbing across the table trying to punch each other. We're working together to help other people, which is
Hmm.
so meaningful. You're
Yeah.
making an impact in people's lives.
Yeah. So, folks, awesome. So, hey, we wanna pull in students on the phone and the YouTube audience as well in a little bit. But boy, I definitely feel on a roll with Charles here. So we'll keep going here. So let's flip it a bit, and I said I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So of course we took with the risk side, the conventional thinking that job is secure, and God, I think that's terribly outdated. We talked about that, and I shared why that is the
Yeah.
case. But let's take freedom, and again we have talked about, and of course I shared, Charles shared, like kind of things we love and the freedom that we have, but again sometimes I'm thinking about this and I'm like I'm not sure. This may sound a little crazy, but if you look at it from a different perspective, like what do we really want from life? I think what really people want is happiness. I mean, most people, I think that's their goal. Or sometimes it's different. I mean, conveyed slightly differently in that, like, they want peace, they want love. You want to feel worthy. You want to feel uh, part of something that means something. And of course, Charles was just referring to that about how Marianne, Charles, and I are all, uh, feel blessed that we're working on something which we feel matters, and it's kind of a mission, right? So it's not a job. Anything that we do is not work. It's a mission, and uh, we feel privileged to serve, right? So that kind of
Yeah.
feeling. So we all want that life, right? Let's call it the good life, right? But of course, if you think about it, I mean, there's no reason you can't have all that as an employee. I mean, an employee and consultant are irrelevant. In fact, the more I've studied these folks, and of course I've studied some who are more on the spiritual side, but I've also studied a lot of folks who are kind of business gurus. And the odd thing is they're both saying the same thing. And so I would say that if you start thinking at that level, that we want, and again, whatever your goal is, right? You want to be happy, you want to feel enough validated, you want to feel like you're worthy, you want to feel like your life has a meaning, then I mean, then employee and consultant discussion seems so irrelevant, right? I mean, God, I mean, what's Steve Jobs, right? I mean, I mean, was he operating in that? Was he right? I mean, was he thinking, oh, should I? Right now, it just seems so irrelevant. So if we get to that level, so I'm gonna share one story that I heard from one of these business slash spiritual gurus that has really influenced me. His name is Sri Kumar Rao. Definitely go, folks, find him. He is one of the top speakers on a network called Mind Valley, and he's also being featured on TED. The funny thing is that he's, I think, only one of two speakers who have been featured on TED, but not for their TED talk. Like, he has never spoken on TED, but they loved his speech so much they said, "Hey, can we feature it on our network?" And they did. And he had this analogy, right? So we're talking about freedom. We're talking about freedom, and again, what Sri Kumar says is just a construct, right? It's a mental model. Uh, and so I mean, you choose to believe what you want to believe. I mean, you choose to believe that, oh, look, I don't have freedom here, and here I have freedom, but it's just a mental model. So
Hmm.
one example that he shares, and man, that blew me away, was that think of uh, think of the FedEx delivery guy. So think about oh God, I just wanna I don't wanna mess this up. This is a good story. So think about the FedEx delivery guy, right, or the UPS truck, whichever shows up in your neighborhood. And yeah, they bring in my Amazon orders and they bring in gifts if other people send that to me. And I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to these guys. Certainly in these times, kind of the frontline workers, they're amazing. But never for a moment do I think that they're the ones who are giving that to me, right? They're just
Mm.
messenger. They're just delivering it, right? So take that and put that into the job setting. And of course, in a job, I talked about 80% of my happiness felt tied to my manager, and I felt so out of control. I mean, God, I mean, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, if my manager changed their mind and they liked me and they didn't like me, or the manager changed or something like that, then I felt out of control. I didn't feel like I had freedom, right? I mean, I felt dependent on the projects they're going to assign me, the rating they're going to give me in annual review, all of this sort of stuff, bonus promotion. But he said, we, you can see that if you knew that they were just a delivery guy. So, God, yeah, I'm messing it up a little bit, but yeah, I say, so Sri Kumar was saying that what if they were just a delivery guy, right? Just the way you don't think that the FedEx person is brought you that gift, but we do think that their boss controls everything, right? I mean that they're the ones who are giving us bonus. They are the ones giving us promotion. They are the ones, kind of shaping our career. So what Sri Kumar is saying is that by us having that mental model, we have curtailed our own freedom. We have created that as a reality. We are the ones who have given them that 80% power. We have given that up, right?
Mm.
Now, if you change that mental model and you say, you know what, I'm thankful for my boss, yeah, he's there to guide me and help me, coach me, but he's just a FedEx delivery guy. Is the universe that provides. Is the universe that I'm dealing with. And I know these concepts. I mean, a few years ago, I would have said these words like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But and again, folks, go check out his talk. We'll see if I can find a link to that. Paste it later. Right. So yeah. So I feel that theoretically, it is possible to feel the same freedom at this level that we're talking about, right? We're kind of feeling happy, feeling enough, feeling worthy, obviously having a mission, not right. So I think it's possible there, and I've definitely heard from a lot of students who are employees, but they feel like they're serving a mission. So Charles, if you go back through your career, let's talk
Yeah.
about the high points when things were working. So you're an employee, but everything felt in line, and you felt like, man, I'm serving a bigger purpose. Um, yeah, I mean, were there moments like that? I hope there were.
Um, yeah, there were times, and I think it's because when I'm an engineer, an engineering brain is let's work on the neatest, the coolest, the newest technology, right? And there were a couple projects where I think I was happiest working. One was a satellite radio system where
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've told this on the show, but they were there's a module in your car that was collecting all the data from all the computers, and then it would send the data to over your Bluetooth phone over to the car dealership, and they would figure out what part would break, and then they had some satellites that they owned, and they would beam up an appointment. They'd order the part for your car.
Mm-hmm.
They'd beam that message up to the satellite and find your VIN number, and then beam it down to the car. And what it was supposed to do was say, hey, we have an appointment scheduled in next week, and we've ordered the part, and we think it's going to break in 2 months, and come in and we'll fix it for you, right? And I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like you were making an impact to that
Yeah.
person. I mean, just our work was tied to helping somebody not break down and not have a failure, and having preventative maintenance. And it was working on this communication system that was potentially forward looking satellite communication, and tying all this data together. Maybe that was my first foray into business
Yeah.
intelligence and analytics.
Yeah.
And I saw
Wow.
the power of this. I was like, wow, that's amazing. You can monitor all this data and really make an impact. And I think, and now that I think about it, that was one of the first flavors of recognizing patterns in data and
Mm-hmm.
seeing this wave of information. And that's when I was most happiest is,
Yeah.
when I was able to work on a project with a real mission to really help people
Wow.
out in the field, so,
Yeah. Oh
and
my
working
God.
with,
Oh
yeah,
gosh, yeah. Charles, this is so awesome. So folks, sometimes I get a lot of heat from companies saying, Avi, you're trying to lure our employees away, right? And
yeah,
man, they give me a real hard time. And for one, I feel like it's like a relationship. You know what they say? I mean, if you gotta set them free, mate, right? I mean, if they love you, they'll come back, right? So, you can't expect that your employees are gonna work with blinders on. That oh, Avi mentioned the word consultant, and now their brain is, kind of infected, and yeah. So hear what Charles is talking about, and I remember in my career the points where I felt like I was working on a mission, and yeah, I mean, it's awesome. So focus on that. Focus on aligning. So if you are in a leadership position, then I think that's what your focus should be. That yeah, everybody feels fulfilled. Man, you know what? Money and all is great, but of course, like the first time I read about the Maslow's hierarchy, it talks about how initially you're trying to kind of meet your needs, but once those basic needs are met, then we have these higher goals, and I think that's where companies can do more to kind of serve their employees better. I mean, reduce the waste and not have them work on meaningless stuff. I'll pull up another story, and then we'll see if we can get some comments in from our students and the YouTube folks. So this is one of the first books that I read about kind of positivity, and that is a relatively new field. And we have focused on the human mind quite a bit, but focused more on from the therapy and kind of psychiatrist kind of side of things. And what positivity did, so before this, the whole endeavor was to help people who were kind of operating in the negative territory, right? I mean, minus 10, minus 100, whatever, and bring them to zero, bring them to normal. And positivity said that, you know what, that's okay, that's worthy, but what if we take people operating at zero and crank them up to 100? What is that going to do? And of course, a lot of studies have shown scientifically, right, that it does amazing things. And of course, one book that is a great to start with is Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker, which again does what we are doing on this call, which is flipping things upside down, right? So the conventional wisdom is that, oh, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to be successful, then I'm going to be happy. And what Sean is saying that nope, that's not what we see, right? And again, experimentally through these a lot of kind of data science, data collection experiments and so forth. They're saying nope, what we see is people who are happy, they end up being more successful. So anyway, so my first foray was a book by Martin Seligman. I think I forget the title, but it had this story where Martin visits a friend and friend family member who was in a coma,
mm,
and he visits that, and of course, well, there's the person is coma, so you're just there for kind of, I don't know, emotional connection, send them your prayers. So he's sitting there, and then the medical staff comes in, and the guy is very happy. He's kind of whistling a tune. So,
mm,
Martin kind of notices that, boy, he's unusually perky. And well, so that staff, I mean, it's not a nurse or something. That person is obviously, these people are kind of coma. So, whatever if there's a bedpan or something, he cleans that. And, yeah, like really menial stuff he's doing. But he's very happy. And then he does something which really catches Martin's attention. So he comes in, walks in with a painting and takes down the one on the wall and puts this one up. And Martin is baffled. He's like, dude, my friend is in a coma, right? And this guy is here changing a painting. What is that? So he has to ask him, and he does. And the person says, "Oh, well, when he wakes up, I wanted him to look at something good and beautiful. And that painting was just kind of boring. So I switched it with something that I think you would like to see."
Hmm.
And man, this guy is changing people's bedpans. And I think that's the difference, right? So we make this constructs. We feel like, our boss and my company is doing this to me. But I think by living in that construct, right? The toughest prison to break out of is the one you make for yourself, right? So by creating that mental model, we make that a reality. Then we're stuck there. We've given others control. And then you see this guy. So in a way, I mean, so you can have. So the message there was that you can have a job, or you can have a career, right? And sometimes like, oh, this is a job just for a paycheck. Oh, it's a career because I'm headed somewhere, and yeah, that's better than job. But then why not live a life filled with kind of purpose and mission? And that's what this person is doing, right? So, anyway, so so let's get some other thoughts in, and yeah, really quickly, I'll also say that the same way we have challenges around the employee side, some of the we talked about, the consultant side also has kind of his dark side. I don't think we're going to have time today to go into it, but let's first maybe hear from some folks from our Learn Power BI family who are on the phone. So, folks, if somebody on the phone wants to chime in, we would love to kind of hear from you. I know some of you have been chatting, posting in the chat box, but if you want to unmute yourself and kind of jump in the discussion, we would love that. So feel free to do that too. Charles, if you saw something in the chat here, then call it out. I'll
Yeah,
just
reading through. But I had a question for you, Avi.
yeah,
So on the consulting side, this is something you and I have been discussing for a while. But there's so much with Power BI, especially. There's so much focus on the technical
yeah,
aspects because there's DAX and M. But I think you and I both discovered, there's a whole nother world of marketing. And I think you said your brother is in marketing and he
yeah,
greatly influenced you and kind of helped you through, and I've been watching, with your YouTube channel, the consistency and just doing it. I'm sure that was hard the first time, right? The first YouTube video. Can you kind of walk us through, what are some of the main things that you had to learn and maybe you were most uncomfortable with? Like, was
yeah.
your first YouTube uncomfortable, or how did your brother influence you, in terms of
Yeah.
marketing and
Yeah, let's start with discomfort or
yeah,
fear. Either way, I mean, it's pretty close. And I have learned to make fear my friend. And the folks, anything that we talk about mindset, what I've seen about mindset is that it's a journey, and it's not a linear journey. It's not like math that, oh, 2 + 2 is 4. Now I know it. Awesome, right? So I felt that you learn a lesson and then you kind of forget, or you slide back down and you have to relearn it again. So it's the same thing for me, and yeah. So yep. Felt really awkward on YouTube lives for a long time. Even now, when I watch my videos, so I think I have a spectrum and I can see that. So my
yeah,
spectrum is, if you watch my recorded YouTube video, I think they sound weird to me. I don't sound like me. I'm like, what? I can't even listen to those. It's hard for me to listen to those. And
yeah,
well, I'm grateful that you guys, your audience, you maybe think differently because you do watch my videos. So thank you for that. But for me, it's hard because it doesn't feel like me. And I think I know why. Because when I'm recording the videos, there's all this garbage in my head. I'm thinking about the number of views and number of subscribers, and I'm like, how do I hook them in, right? So that one seems really strange to me.
hmm,
Then I feel I've gotten a lot more comfortable on the live. Live, I just let that go, and yeah, and yeah, A little bit, I'm still sometimes I'm watching the number of viewers, and if it drops, I'm like, oh my god, what did I say? That kind of stuff. But it's okay. I've come to get more comfortable with it. And often I'm most comfortable inside the course because I know it's a smaller audience, it's just my students, and I can just relax and kind of focus on teaching. So, but
Hmm.
anyway, so I think that fear always kicks in.
Yep.
And like this whole virtual conference thing, oh my god, I was so scared. And
Yeah.
the biggest challenge about fear that I've seen is that it doesn't really show up always as fear. Like, you're not going to say that, oh, I'm afraid of doing this. Man, it shows up in a whole bunch of different ways. So, another book that I'm reading right now, Positive Intelligence, brilliant book. In fact, you know what? Yeah, brilliant book. And if you guys go to, I think there's a website, it's just positiveintelligence.com. It has this really quick and easy test, and I'm not a huge fan of tests because, frankly, you see these on Facebook all the time, and I'm like, what? Like, who's your favorite? This character? Which character you like? Then those kind of silly. But hey, this one is, the guy has done a TED talk. He's a researcher, so he's not, yeah, and yeah, so he's legit. So positiveintelligence.com, and he has a test about what he calls your saboteurs, right? So these
Hmm.
are different personas and personalities who bring you down, and there are specific kinds. I know mine. My top one is hyper rational.
Hmm.
Yours may be totally different. And again, if you're interested, go to positiveintelligence.com, take that test, and it is that book and that approach is changing my life. So mine is hyper rational, and hence that is how my fear often shows up. And man, that's why if you don't have this realization, you are not going to stand a chance, frankly, of overcoming your fear. So my fear would show up as this hyper rational persona, and it's going to say, Avi, this virtual conference thing is just not a good idea, and here are the 5 reasons why. And it's going to be really convincing, right? So, and of course, the challenge is that we don't see that as the hyper rational saboteur stepping in and drawing us back from something that gets us closer to fulfilling our mission, right? We don't see that as that. What do we see it as? We see that as us. We see that as that's me. That's what I'm thinking. That's what my opinion is, right? So that's been one of the journey where you realize that you are not your thoughts, because man, our thoughts can be commandeered by these personas at different times. We are not our thoughts. So now I've been working on kind of detecting, first of all, when my this hyper rational saboteur steps in. It helps to give it a name. I have given a name. I'll talk about that maybe later. Right. So anyway, so the fear and all this discomfort, that's part of life, and of course you can kind of switch it. You've heard me say this phrase where I learned it from my coach, and he said, "Life happens at the edge of your comfort zone." So now, if I'm feeling kind of fearful or hesitation, some anxiety, then I say, "Man, I must be doing the right thing." Because I'm feeling this discomfort, and life happens at the edge of your comfort zone, and I do want to, have a kick-ass life. So that's the discomfort part, and it never goes away. And of course, people think that, and they're like, "Oh, Avi, you're like you've done it, right? You have nothing to worry about." Nothing could be farther from the truth, folks. I struggle with. I have the same struggles. So Charles and I, we both go through the same stuff that you guys deal with, just in a different setting, right?
Yep. Uh,
Cool. So hopefully, I have. I totally forgot. There was a first part to your question.
oh well, I just want to add to that. So I think I'm starting to realize I've been thinking a lot about that, and one of mine is time. I said, well, I tell myself I don't have the time. I'm so busy, but
Yeah.
lately I've been making time. If something comes up in
Yeah.
priority, I was like, well, this is really important. My fear is going to kick in, and I'm gonna realize it. And it's almost like you have to know when your brain is trying to tell you to, when that
Oh,
fear
big
kicks in.
time, mate. Big
Yeah,
time.
and the
Yeah.
technical, and maybe this is because I'm an engineer, but the technical thing, and maybe that's why we get that question in your classes too. But as
Yeah.
engineers or technical people, you're always your fear kicks in as I don't know this DAX or row context or
Oh
filter context.
God, yeah,
So
yeah.
so
Actually,
I'm
now I
wondering
remember your
now that
first
I'm
part of the
putting
question. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm wondering if that's why, in our group, especially, that's the fear manifesting itself. It's like, oh, am I technical? Do I know
yeah,
this enough to
yeah,
solve somebody's problem? So, no, I just wanted to comment that those are some of my fears. But
yeah.
just a follow up. So, when you first started this journey, you said you were an accidental. Um,
Yes, that's
and
right.
then, just for my journey, marketing is one area that I had to really study and pick up. And LinkedIn is what I learned from you. Is LinkedIn is really powerful, so I use that as my medium. But I
Yeah.
think you had some mentors, and maybe you mentioned your brother. But what are some aspects that you didn't know you would have to address, like marketing the funnel? How did you pick that
Yeah,
up initially?
yeah. Um, so I think the biggest thing that I didn't expect is that how much of an inner journey it's going to be. And of course,
Mm,
I heard it from my coach Simon again, and he says, "Hey, you guys are here to learn the 5 steps to hack the marketing funnel and do this and do that, right? I mean, get them to click the buy button or whatever stuff like that." And it's okay, I'll give that stuff to you, but I want you to know that none of that stuff is really important. That's far less important than the inner journey. And of course I would hear it a lot of times, but I'm like, come on man, move on. Yeah, just give me the 5 tips. So yeah, I
yeah.
mean, people are very fixated on that, and I'll talk about that. I mean, how I took that journey. But uh, yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's so let's take the example of the virtual conference, right? So that's, folks, is an example of the inner journey or the mindset or the inner work that I talk about. Now, if I look at my journey, I could have done this virtual conference 2 years ago
Mm,
without a problem at all, right? I mean, I had been a Microsoft MVP. I had rubbed shoulders with, man, the top minds in Power BI. I knew them. I'd hung out with them in conferences when they were still happening, right? And yeah, so it wouldn't have been a problem at all. But I was miles away, thousands of miles away from being able to do it, not externally, but internally,
mm,
because I didn't see myself as that. That was not my identity. So this 2 years now that we're finally doing a Power BI conference, it's happening not because something changed externally, is because something changed internally. I started being a different person, right? Believing in something else. Like, oh yeah, I can do it. Why not, right? So that is one example of an inner journey. And what I often say is that, folks, if you look at your life and it feels like, man, I have to struggle like extra hard to get results, then probably you're not in alignment internally and externally. Externally, you want something, like externally, you want $1 million, but internally, you don't have that identity. And guess what? You're never going to get that $1 million until you change that identity. So, for example, I've been working with my coach about cleaning my room. And it sounds kind of silly, but so I work out of my bedroom. So behind the screen, well, there's my bed. And what was happening was I have my whiteboards and I have post-its everywhere. So of course, work. And then I was having trouble sleeping, and she said, "Well, I mean, no surprise, because I mean, it's next to my bed is a whiteboard with all the post-its and all the ideas, all the stuff that I need to do." So I said, "Oh, I'm going to clean my room." But then we talked about something deeper. It's not like I have not cleaned my room before. I have cleaned my room. I can clean my room. But man, it always ends up cluttered. Right? I clean it and the time goes on and there are post-its everywhere. So why is that? Why is that? Well, that is because as within, as without. If there is clutter in my mind, it's going to reflect in my outer world, right? So folks, so yeah, so if you see this, that you try and you try and you try and it doesn't work and it comes back again, and you're like, oh man, right? You get money and you lose it, you get a promotion and you lose a job, or something like that happens. If that has been the story of your life, it feels like, man, I've struggled like extra hard to get the itty bitty results, then that's when you need to work on that internal alignment. And because when that does align, then everything you get the opposite of that. Then everything becomes easy. Then everything comes to you. Like I would hear my coaches talk about this use this language like, oh, the universe just gives and money just flows, and I'm like, what bullshit is that? I don't which world are you living in? But of course, if you change it inside, you change the alignment, then everything does come easy and so forth, right? Uh, so that's kind of a one aspect. So inner journey is important. Ignore it on your own battle, right? But let's talk about. So for one, I think we're too fixated about how good we are versus who we can help. So I always focus on that. So yeah. So for example, I mean, let's look at marketing or copywriting or stuff like that. When I start delving into it, you realize, and I'm sure you felt the same way, where you realize that, man, I don't even know 1%. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, Charles, I feel the same way about Power BI, especially now with this whole thing exploded. And man, I've never, I haven't stepped into Power Apps, Power Flow, Power Automate, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And there's so much. And even with Power BI, I feel like I really know 1%, right? So, and I feel like the biggest mistake that we make is that we become obsessed with that, and we feel like the more we know, the more we're gonna, that's our path to success. But I feel like if we shift the focus and say, hey, how can we help?
Yeah.
Who can we help? That is a big deal. But the last thing that I would mention is that let yourself enjoy the journey. We're so fixated with kind of the end goal, the end result, that oh, when I master marketing and so forth, then my marketing funnel will be set, and then I'll have clients lined up outside the door. But let yourself enjoy the journey, kind of the learning process. And I know you're a bit like that, but sometimes when we are in that kind of anxious mode, then we forget that part of us, right? And we were so fixated on the results. So for example, man, copywriting, I'm a huge fan. So for folks, of course, I don't know what copy is. So copy is basically the written text they use in advertising. And of course, it's in advertising, but copy is kind of emails as well. Any of your marketing material, your website, and all that stuff. So that's what's called copy. And I have, I mean, I've enjoyed that process. And one fun thing that I've done is, and maybe I'll internally do like a sharing session with the Learn Power BI students, is that for a while now, I've been keeping so I use Google Keep for my notes on my phone, and I've been taking photos and collecting any example of good or bad copywriting. And there's
Mm.
some hilarious ones. Like, why would you say that in your ad? That kind of stuff. But of course, there are good ones too. It's like, whoa, that hits the spot. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I've just made like a fun exercise where you learn from others. Oh, cool, that is awesome, and let's just kind of sink in. Yeah, so hopefully that answers a bit of it. All right, folks. So we didn't. Let's see what's going on with the chat, and then maybe we'll wind up.
But
So
I noticed, Avi, there's
mhm.
a lot of comments about politics and personal relationships in our chat, in the Zoom chat.
ah. God, it's a office politics. Yeah, that is definitely what are what's about the personal relationship, like as in that they are
Um,
important.
James, being your own boss, lost his job, personality conflict between boss and myself.
Yeah,
Looking forward to next great adventure. I don't know if James is still on the phone.
yeah. So yeah, folks, if you're on the phone, yeah, we would love to kind of hear from you. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want to chat. Just share kind of your thoughts. Um, yeah. Um, so you can do that. Yeah, mate. I mean, it it's it, it's it's well, I was gonna say it's a reality, but um, it does happen. But I think you can overcome that if you want, right? So and of course, and I think the reality is, Charles, you and I both know that we talk about employee versus consultant, but man, I mean, out of 100 people who talk to me about becoming a consultant, maybe five or less take any action towards it, What do you feel about that actually? Let's talk about that. I mean, and I think that's a bigger question. So, folks, we'll kind of wind up on that. So let's make this the last question, last kind of topic. Uh,
Avi, just a quick question, if I may.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, mate. Yeah. So,
Um,
Avish.
Bavesh, yeah, I'm based in the UK. Is the reality not that because you're self-employed when you're starting out, the
Mm-hmm.
hours that you work will be considerably more than you
Yeah.
do with your 9 to 5? I appreciate that the
Yeah.
payback is that you're doing something that you love.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Wow,
But
that's an
when you're
excellent
starting,
point. Love it.
but when you're starting out with
Mm-hmm.
your first client, uh,
Yeah.
if you're employed with the employer, your paycheck is £3,000 a month.
Yeah.
But your first paycheck when you're starting out, it can be as little as £500,
Yep.
and that can
Been
be
there.
so difficult.
Yeah,
That's when
yep,
you've got to
yep.
dig deep and say, "I'm going to get there, man." So, how did you
Yeah.
go from being employed to that first stage, Charles?
Oh, yeah, I can jump in first
Yeah.
maybe with my
Mm-hmm.
story. I still remember my first client. And you're right, it was a lot of hours, and boy, was I motivated. Was I excited? I wanted to impress this client. I would stay up all night, all morning, get up. I remember my wife was like, "Why are you up at 3 in the morning?" I was like, "I got my first client. I got to do this good job."
Oh, that's
And
hilarious.
and it's speaking of impact and doing something for yourself and learning something. I was learning. It's the process of learning too, right? I was like, here's a real problem. I'm going to solve this for somebody and really make an impact, and they can take this and really make a difference. And
Yeah.
then also the when I got that first the bill or the invoice got paid, and that first PayPal, I just that it's like getting your college acceptance letter, right? I remember
Yeah.
I got the email that said the payment was coming, and I was just waiting and waiting. I was like, wait, and then the email popped up, and I was like, I wanted to print it out so bad. So that's just one story. Is I don't know. There's just this adrenaline rush and excitement and learning that happens when you first take that jump. And I guess it's like, if you're flying for the
Yeah.
first time, right? And you're out there flying, if you're that bird and you're flying out of the nest, and you're like, wow, and everything just excites you, and it's so much fun. So that's
How long did it take you to get the conversion from prospect to client?
um so that's a good question, because I was doing it at home on the side as a kind of a side job. And that, and Avi can jump in too, but that's awful hard, because you're going to work, you're spending 8 hours focused on your real work, and then you're trying to go home. And if you don't if when you get home and you're tired and you don't have the willpower, it's hard. So um that first client, between when I first registered my company, my LLC, and when I first really did something, because I was doing the 8 to 5 thing, probably took 6 months. It took a long time before I was ready to, chase my first client and really go close a
Mm-hmm.
deal. And then, and I had to help. I think it was Avi, it was through you that you helped, but it really, I didn't, it was a long transition time before I learned how to close deals. And I
Yeah.
remember binge watching you have a series of videos on how to sell and talk,
Yeah.
and and listen and really figure out the problem. Listen for the problem and not push your tool, and really understand the scope of the project,
Yeah.
and do a lot of listening, right? So I remember binge watching and binge listening to that. So that's my take. So
So, did you
Yeah.
have you as well, Albi? So, when you first went out, did you have a pre-written script on how to get your clients?
Oh, I had no idea, mate. Yeah, that's why I'm giving it to the Pro Plus members to make it easy for them. I was so clueless. I actually my first time God, I have so many stories where I messed up and just I was so bad. Yeah. So yeah, on that, so Charles said that it was hard for him to have the job and do something on the side. I had the opposite experience where I had up and quit my job. So I was like, "Oh, I have a dream in my heart. I'm gonna go pursue my dream. Thank you, Microsoft. See ya." Right? And And of course, when I did that, I felt great. There was a going away party, and people, there was cake and all that stuff. And I remember I said to somebody that, man, I feel kind of bummed that it took me 40 years to find my mission. And that guy kind of punched me, and he said, Avi, do you realize how lucky you are? Because most people go through the whole lives, and they never have a clue what their mission is. So, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I feel lucky, right? So that was okay, but man, did that fade really quick. And man, leaving my job cold turkey. And of course, in my case, I was a complete idiot because I didn't have any plan. I didn't know what I was doing. Nothing at all. Um, it was brutally hard. So of
Hmm.
course the income just dried up. It's like poof, vanished. The paycheck not coming in. I had some savings, but man, you start to see them dwindle, and then it got, man, I remember when I had burned through my savings and I started getting the NSF notices, non-sufficient funds. My checks or whatever payments or online payments were bouncing, and that was the first time in my life I'd ever experienced that. And I was completely lost. I mean, I was so broken that I remember I would be driving and I would see the construction crew on the side of the road, and I felt like I should go get a job digging ditches. Not no disrespect meant for that, but hey, I mean, I know that I was meant for something else, but right, I mean, that's how low I was. Right? So yeah, mate. So as hard as I think it can be challenging to kind of have a full-time job and do something side, generally my advice is that is still better. I mean, so generally my advice is, do that on the side, not like me, no cold turkey, and then yeah, then you're more in control and you can kind of transition. So I know it has its own set of challenges, but that's that. But let's so folks. Hey Charles, I want to make sure it's okay with you, mate. I know we've gone a
Yeah.
little bit over. Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, that's
All
fine.
right, folks. But this is a Bhavesh. Thanks for this question. This is a good one, and I'm sure it must have been on other people's minds as well. And of course, I see that, right? So, I see that if there are 100 people interested, thinking about it, very, very few take action on this, and that's okay. But sometimes it's kind of fears and objections like this which holds us back, right? So, what I
Mhm.
heard Bhavesh saying was that, man, I mean, I'm maybe considering it. Maybe he's doing it already or something like that. But man, initially it's so hard, right? It's so hard. I'm working extra longer. That's what we heard from Charles. He was up at 3 a.m. He's working really long, right? Extra hours for not that much return, right? So, and I think maybe, and that is true, folks. So I'm not gonna lie about it. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, I've heard different stories, but it's possible that you would have that experience. But then why do we do it? And I think that part is important. And that's why you need to keep
Yeah.
your end goal in mind. And of course, Charles and I have talked about it. And of course, we talk about it quite in the Pro Plus group. I say, keep that end goal in mind. Like, what life do you want to create, right? So, and again, it shouldn't be about a money goal. I mean, it's okay to have a money goal, but also have a life goal. It's like, what kind of life do I want to create? So I know what's true for me. I want to create a life for freedom. I want to be able to be around with my kids. I love traveling. I want to be able to travel with them as soon as things allow, permission. Things change. My parents are in India. I have moved there from there, and I want to be around with them more. I want to take month-long vacations to India, maybe even longer. So yeah, I
Mate,
want that
sorry.
life, and of course, I want to be doing work that doesn't feel like work any day. I want to be doing something which makes me jump out of bed and filled with excitement, right? So again, I mean, keep an eye on the life you want to create so that end goal can drive you through those hard periods. But here's where I think could be a critical difference between this employee versus consultant life. In fact, I'm going to change that statement and I'm going to say employee versus freelancer or consultant mindset. It's a mindset thing. You can have this mindset as an employee and your life will change, uh, or you can have this mindset as a freelancer, or if you don't have it, then you're going to struggle, right? I mean, freelancer isn't like this promised land, right? So I think the difference is what we call working in your business versus on your business, right? So the pieces, the hard work that I put into my work and the process that I put in, man, they add up. They're adding up to something bigger, and you can never lose sight of that, and never take away your focus from that. I've seen consultants who get so busy in their business that they're not working on their business, and inevitably they either get burnt out or things stop working, or it doesn't end well, right? So so what we talk about in the Pro Plus program, I mean, so Charles definitely knows, all of the Pro Plus members knows that we have this 5 milestone approach. The first milestone is you define a focus or a niche you want to serve. Nobody should go out there and say, hey, I do Power BI. You need Power BI? I do Power BI. I mean, that's just silly, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, it reminds me of those folks standing outside of Home Depot looking for work. Like, come on, I got to stop it, right? So, and that's one reason why, so you got to define a focus or a niche and say, hey, I help finance professionals, right? So something like that. It could be anything, right? So it's typically should be something you already have experience with and so forth, and you combine it with that. So that's step one. Step two is you got to have a story around it. So if I decided my focus is finance professionals, and then you can be more specific, like finance analyst, or is it the CFO, right? But anyway, you pick something, and you don't have to nail it initially. You just go with something that feels right, and then I have to have a story that I can tell them, right? So it could be a project that I've done, it could be a demo that I've created, right? Obviously, if I've never had a client before, but it's something. So say, yep, I hear, and again, since you've defined your focus and niche, that's step one. So you know their pain points, and you've done some research. Maybe you've lived that life as well, right? So I had worked around finance professionals, so I know their pain points. So I can talk to them. So in that story, I'll say, hey, I hear you, I feel you, I know the pain points you're struggling with, and you feel like a highly paid data monkey, and you're spending a week refreshing a monthly report, whatever, right? So I say that, and guess what? There's a way out. Let me show you, and that can be one of your stories. There are lots of other ways to do stories. There's no right or wrong way. This is just one way to do. So that's step two. That's your story. And number three is you get your first client, get your first paid client. And of course, we go into more detail how to get that and all that stuff. Number four is get your next paid client. And number five is to take all of this knowledge, see what has worked, see what has not, all of the training inside the program, and build a steady stream of clients. And of course, you then kind of keep iterating through this whole loop. Anyway, don't worry about the milestones and all of that stuff. The key idea is to working on your business. So everything that I'm doing, all the hard work that I'm doing, that's laying the bricks, the foundation for a business that I'll build. And that's what I often don't see, and definitely didn't experience myself when I was in a job. It was very transactional, right? So when you're in a job, then time equates to money. I mean, the more I work, the harder I work, the more likely I am to get a promotion and get a raise or something like that, right? So time and money are correlated. But really the fact is when you're working, you have a business, again, you should be working on your business, not as much in your business. So when I get a client, I may work extra hard. And we have lots of stories inside. Eamon Kelly, he's been great. So he has a story where he worked with a mining company, right? And mining company, and maybe he did spend a lot of hours, and maybe he didn't get paid that much, right? So, and again, that can be reality when starting out. But then you can take that experience, the knowledge, maybe create a demo out of it or something, and knock on the doors of 100 other mining companies. And guess what? The more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, your effort is going to go smaller and smaller and smaller till it can even vanish, right? Where you're selling templates to them. And the income, the reward you get is going to get bigger and bigger. That is just one example of working on your business. But generally, that's how I see it. So when I do something new, I'm always thinking of not just doing that thing, but how it fits in my business engine. Like, where does that fit in? Like, can it help me get more leads? Can it help me convert them to clients? Can it help me serve my clients better? Or can it somehow just, do something magical and just make more revenue? You can do that too, right? So I'm thinking about it from the business. So I think it's true initially you might have to work hard, but as long as you have that line of sight, and as long as you can kind of follow that path where you're using those as building blocks to kind of build a business and not do this trade, right? I mean, as long as you do that trade, God, that's a sucky trade. Time for your money, that's a really sucky trade Because if you think about it, man, most people trade away the best years of their life. God, come on, right? I mean, I started working when I was 20 years old. And man, I left at 40, right? All of that time, all I did was trade time with money, time with money. That is a sucky, sucky trade. And, yeah, so cool. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about it. By the way, just a quick shout out to Nas Daily. Check that guy out. He's the one who inspired me. He's the one who planted this idea in my head that this is a sucky trade. He had a high paying job somewhere in Wall Street and then left that because he realized that, oh my God, this is what I'm doing. And the rest is history. All right, folks. So Charles, any closing thoughts? Anything that you feel would make this episode complete?
I'm just going to end with the thought on why I took this journey. You talked about yours, and freedom was a lot of, and I didn't want to have any regrets. In life, I thought that I've been thinking about that a lot recently. I don't know why, but I was like, this is a journey I need to take. I don't want to have any regrets. Like you, I wanted time. Time, they say, is one of those things that you can't buy. Once it's gone, it's gone. And I really, my son is getting to senior year of high school, and I'm like, wow, it's getting to that time where he's gonna spread his wings and go. And I want time with him. And once he's out of the house, he's out of the house. So I wanted to get that back, and now was the time to step off. But I just want to end with, after years and years of going through 8 to 5 and having a structure and everything, and my newfound freedom, it took some adjustment, because when you're first sitting there and maybe you haven't filled, all your day with work and jobs, and you're like, I have free time. What do I do? I think I'll take a walk, and I remember that first week, I was like, what do I do with all this time and freedom now? So it takes a little bit of an adjustment. It might be a little scary at first, but that was what I wanted to end with, is there is an adjustment, and it turns out to be really good once you learn how to deal with your freedom. So.
Yeah. Awesome, folks. So, hey, if you didn't already, then post us ideas on future topics you would like us to discuss. And again, we're hoping that this is just the first out of many. We hope to do this monthly, just kind of come, hang out, chat with each other, chat with all of you. And so we'll see you next time. Maybe a quick shout out to the announcements I made earlier. So Power BI conference is open. The top Power BI business minds in the world are here to share their lessons with you on both tech and the business side of things. So just go to powerbiconference.com to register. And that's it. We will see you next time. All right, folks, take care.